Aaron is a 20-plus year technology veteran. He's a serial entrepreneur who founded multiple Metaverse companies. Those companies were developed independently and now rolled up under a single Metaverse powerhouse, Futureverse. We're very excited to be speaking more with you today and introduce the Futureverse project to XRP larger developer audience.
Yeah, thanks, Yana. Really excited to be here myself. Awesome to see all of you guys out here, the builders that are building out this ecosystem, and really, really excited to share what we're up to at the Futureverse in partnership with Ripple. Amazing.
So can you tell us more about the Futureverse and the vision behind it?
Yeah, so a little bit of history. Got into Web3 in around 2015, but seriously from 2016. My previous background was in IT and telecommunications. And when I came into this space, I got really excited by it, but I found there were some really big issues with usability. So we started to invest in, accelerate, and incubate companies who were looking at solving usability issues in the infrastructure layer of Web3. For about 3 years, we built out a portfolio of companies, around 30 companies that were solving different parts of those infrastructure problems. And then we started to think about what were the things that would turn users on and bring them into this new economy, this new digital economy. And like many things on the internet, content led the way. And so we thought content would be the key to unlocking adoption for users coming into Web3 and beginning their journey there. And so we started to do the same thing with content-based companies, and we built together another portfolio of companies that were building on technology for creating content, technology for activating that content and making interoperable, and IP to attract users to the space. Both first-party IP created natively with Web3 communities and also partnerships with global brands around the world. After a little while of doing that, we got some success. And we were approached by some growth stage funds who were really interested in what we were doing inside this ecosystem and said, why don't you create a bigger entity? So we did that. We pulled together 11 companies across 4 jurisdictions that were focused on either infrastructure, content generation tools, or content itself into one vertically integrated metaverse powerhouse. Now we have I think well over 250 people in 16 countries around the world, and we work with the biggest brands across 5 different sectors of content to activate their users and new experiences in the open metaverse.
That's amazing. Do you have characters in the Futureverse?
Yeah, we have now well over 4 million NFTs in the ecosystem now.
Amazing.
And we have, I think, 20 different collections that make that up. So we have quite a bit of content out there, and our kind of view on how you build out the metaverse starts with really great stories, and then you pull characters out of those stories. You take those characters and you build content around them, then you create experiences around that content, and then you can go into world building and games. And so starting really rich character sets is a really important thing to us.
What's your favorite character?
Well, I did have a favorite in the Fluff World collection, which is one of our collections inside the Futureverse called Thug's Bunny. But I sold him for charity, so he went to a good home, and now I am rocking a party bear with a gold mohawk. Me and my 2 brothers have one each. It's a little kind of a meme inside the community, so right now it's my favorite. But the great thing about the metaverse is you can be who you want to be, and I can change from time to time.
I like party bear too.
Yeah.
So you mentioned before that you work at the intersection of Web3, artificial intelligence, and Metaverse. Can you tell us more why Web3 is important to both artificial intelligence and Metaverse?
Yeah, it's a really important question. I think the starting point for that, we need to define the metaverse, because there's lots of information out there about and hype about what this is. And our view of the metaverse is that it's an evolution of the internet and our digital society. It's not this thing that sits over here distinctly. It's a part of society at large, and in a society that's becoming more digital. People might say, when's it coming? When's the metaverse coming? Well, people in this room and people that are born in this generation will spend 46 years of their life looking at a screen. You are in the metaverse. It already exists. And what is different about this technology paradigm is a few simple things. One, it's about the concatenation of user experiences that were once silos. So when we started out in this digital world, we had things like communications. I worked for a telecommunications company. We had media. Media companies had their own networks separate from telecommunications companies. That's how far apart they were. We had commerce. Even online commerce was its own distinct thing. We had banking and finance. They were their own things. We had gaming. It was its own thing. And these were kind of things you went and did completely separately from each other. And as the metaverse progressed, we started to see those things come together and to form more unified user experiences. And so an example of that would be when communications and media came together to create social media. And it obliterated both of those industries by providing a new user experience that consumed both of the inputs and provided friendlier ways for consumers to interact with it. We've seen commerce come into that. So commerce, giants in commerce over here, like Alibaba, their lunches be eaten by TikTok. The fastest growing e-commerce segments in the world are TikTokers, who are now merging social media with commerce to create social commerce. And so the metaverse is more and more of that, coming into more and more converged and immersive experiences. And if you look out there at like parallels in the industry, and I'd say if I asked most people who's the biggest metaverse company out there or the most successful metaverse company out there, people will say Fortnite or Roblox or maybe Meta. But actually, WeChat would be, Tencent would be my view. Because they were the first to really provide that converged user experience. If you go and spend time in China, you can live your whole life inside of that application. That is the metaverse. Now, where it gets a bit more interesting, and where the AI comes into it and where Web3 comes into it is, for true interoperability to happen, which is what the open metaverse is about, you have to have ownership of digital things with users. Otherwise, interoperability is limited by the gates that companies build around those things. And so what is Web3 for? It's protocols for owning value on the internet. It's the kind of missing link that we've needed to transition from a analog society to a digital society is where do you store value and how can you store value in a way that is user-owned and user-dominated and community-owned and community-dominated. And that's what Web3 does. So Web3 gives us the ability to hold the things that are important to us in our digital selves in a place that we can actually own as users. So identity, content assets, value assets, all of those things, Web3 brings the ownership layer, which then enables the interoperability layer. And then AI, I stood up in front of the Morgan Stanley China Summit recently because there was so much hype around AI and the metaverse had kind of faded over there as a forgotten child. And my first slide that I put up was, long live AI, the metaverse is dead. And it's a bit of tongue in cheek because you've got all these people out there that are like, AI generated content, it's awesome, ChatGPT and Midjourney and all these kind of tools to create content and make it simple for users to engage with new forms of content generation. But the metaverse, oh no, don't want to be associated with that. Where do you think that content lives? We saw in every cycle of the internet the change that accelerated adoption for new modes of consumption was driven by tools that made it easy for users to consume. And so websites became the dominant way people consumed the internet when we made tools like Wix and WordPress and Squarespace so that every business could build a website. The social media became the dominant way we created online presences when Facebooks and MySpaces and Bebos and all those people created simple ways for users to generate and share content in a social way. And these tools, and the ones we're creating and we'll show you later on today, are doing the same thing for immersive spaces. What we missed in the metaverse hype was the tools to enable rich, immersive content creation. And now these tools are becoming available with AI. We can empower users to go and create that, and that will become the default way people experience the internet, because those tools make it simple to do so.
We'll come back to AI later in this talk, but can you talk more about protocols and blockchains? You did mention that that's the protocols and blockchains and what enabled users to own their assets. So how, and my understanding is that Root Network is a protocol layer within the Futureverse. Can you talk more about the Root Network and what we can expect in the future?
Yeah, so within Futureverse, we've got these like 3 bits: infrastructure and protocols, content generation, and applications and content. At the infrastructure layer, the center of that is the Root Network. The Root Network is a XRPL sidechain, uses XRP for gas natively on the network, and it's integrated to things like the XLS20 standard. And so the Root Network was designed to both provide superpowers to XRP and to the ledger to do things that it couldn't do, but also to solve the usability issues for bringing new users into Web3. You know, the onboarding hurdles, the user safety hurdles, all of those kinds of things that have stopped adoption, woefully so for our industry, by the way. You know, if you look out there, there are something like 320 million consumers who have owned crypto. 320 million, roughly 5% of the world's population. Less than 5% of those interact directly with blockchain applications. That tells you everything you need to know about why blockchains have not been successful to date, because it's super hard to do, super scary to do, super confronting to do. And so Root Network was designed to solve a lot of those problems. And on top of that, we built these core protocols and services that make it both easy for users to interact and for developers to build on top of it. Things like FuturePass, which is our digital identity and single sign-on system, our asset register, which enables interoperability of content in the metaverse, embedded protocols in the network that support creating assets and managing assets. We'll be hooking into the XRP AMM shortly to increase liquidity on the network. So making it simple for developers and making it simple for users at the core of what the Root Network's about.
That's amazing. So you already built the application layer around Root Network, which users can use to interact in the Futureverse. Are there other crypto and blockchain areas that you're excited about? And do you see users using Root Network to then bridge into other use cases and other applications?
Yeah, I mean, our belief is rooted in the idea that content will drive initial steps of adoption. And if you make that simple and fun and engaging, then you can teach users about the other bits of being a Web3 citizen, rather than shoving it in their face to begin with. And I think that's something that, as a Web3 community, has scared a lot of people off. You know, the idea of that things being all about finance and money and all of those kinds of things, that's very confronting to most people. And so if you can start them with something fun that they can learn from, and we have heard the term in the industry a lot, play and earn. And again, that's been a really negative thing for onboarding developers, game developers, and gamers into the space, because it turns something that's fun, play, into something that's a job, earn. And so that in itself is kind of a silly oxymoron. What we like to do is play and learn. So an example of that would be our partnership with FIFA. We created the first Web3 game to launch with FIFA outside of their EA Games relationship, called the FIFA AI League on Android and mobile. Launched 6 or 8 weeks ago now. We're climbing up to 500,000 downloads of new users who didn't know that they were connecting to Web3, that didn't know that they were playing with NFTs, that didn't have to learn about how to interact with an AI. And then we can take those users on a journey to understand all of those things in deeper layers and become citizens of Web3 across payments or finance, all the other kind of really exciting use cases for transmitting value across the internet.
You mentioned XRP Ledger sidechains and Root Network being one of the sidechains.
Yeah.
Could you talk more about how you think XRP Ledger sidechains benefit the entire community and what impact it has on XRP Ledger ecosystem?
Yeah, I think, like I said earlier, We chose XRPL and to work with Ripple and the XRP community for a range of things. But one of the things that we found interesting when we were looking at other layer ones out there to connect to was two things. One, the kind of ethos around XRP and the community and the way the ledger was designed was aligned with our ethos. The way that the ledger's being designed to be lightweight, to do simple things really, really well, to reduce fees, all of those kinds of things align with providing good user experience. But XRP as a ledger lacked some functionality that we needed to activate the experiences that we wanted to for our users. So we can bring those two things together. The root network drives value back into XRPL because we're doing more activity on the ledger when those connections are made. It enhances the options for developers in the ecosystem to create new applications. They can connect with our native runtimes on the root network. They can interact with our content on the root network if they want to. The brands that are onboarding those users, they can interact with those users. And they can use features like our deeply integrated EVM. So if you're a Solidity developer out there and you have been playing with applications in that ecosystem, you can implement those, and now they will interact with XRP and the XRPL. So it's a symbiotic relationship where we bring more users, more value, more activity, and XRPL keeps doing what it's great at, which is providing that simple ability to settle transactions and to transmit value across the internet.
That's great. We do want more users and more developers in the ledger. Let's go back to AI and specifically AI-generated content. What do you think is happening within that space? And are there any examples that you can talk about that you are working on?
Yeah, so it's a big part of our business. We started building at the intersection of AI, Web3, and content about 4 years ago now. One of the businesses that got rolled into the Futureverse was called the Altered State Machine, which I also co-founded. An Altered State Machine has roughly 2 areas that they focused on. One is tools for generating rich, immersive content, and the other is tools for activating that content in those environments. So on the generation side, we have tools for generating objects and avatars and environments and music, and animations. And on the activation side, we've got a whole stack of technology about bringing those to life inside of applications, ways to store memories, ways for objects to interact in intelligent ways with characters, ways for environments to interact with characters, infrastructure for training those things that make it cost effective to use inside of gaming environments. So it's a really big part of our business. We have we're very lucky to have a very well-stocked research team, one of the best in the world in this space, that are well-published in major journals around the world across these different areas. We recently released our research paper on generative music called Gen. You can find that on the futureverse.com website. And if you're not super technical or academic, we do a series called What the F, or What the Futureverse is. There's an explainer for Gen as well there. And Gen generates better quality music than Meta and Google's models. And we're working closely with the music industry to bring that to market as a product later this year in beta and early next year for public launch. But we have really great research in 3D generation, in environment generation, in character animation, all the things that are necessary to conjure the worlds that you can imagine.
That's great. Let's switch topics a little bit. What's the hardest part of your job?
You can see that we have a lot going on at Futureverse. And so one of the things that keeps me occupied is in the plethora of choices that we have and things that we could do. What are the most important things that we should do? And so that's hard sometimes because there's lots of exciting opportunities out there and brands are talking to us all the time about things we could do. But really keeping the team focused on that. The other thing is, this is a big enterprise that spans the globe, and I think it would be impossible to do without a great leadership team. So, finding the best way to encourage and drive and support my leadership team is something that I'm constantly working on. And so that's something that keeps me up at night is, am I pushing too hard, or am I providing enough support, or am I focusing on the right things?
How do you have fun?
Well, I mean, it's a fun space to be in. If you want to be in technology, the intersection of AI and Web3 and content is probably the most exciting place to be. Not only is there fun academic challenges and research challenges and technical challenges, you get to work with great brands and celebrities and stuff like that. So it is super fun. Outside of that, I'm kind of a quiet family man. My wife, my daughter, my son kind of make up the rest of my life. For personal relaxation, I like to go and cut gorse, which is a kind of weed which grows sometimes in some places and hard to get rid of on my little farm block where my beach house is. And that's very cathartic for me to go out there and reminisce on my childhood days on the farm and just put some manual labor in for a day. That keeps me happy.
This sounds relaxing. Did you go to FIFA World Cup?
Yeah.
Recently?
Yeah, actually it was really fun. We got invited to come over and spend some time with the FIFA team at the World Cup. We had the opportunity to go and see the quarterfinal with England and Colombia, but before that, watch on the big screen at the stadium the Australia versus France game. Incredible atmosphere, awesome, amazing game in the end with almost the whole women's team been through the penalty shootout process. I don't think you'd ever kind of experience that again at a World Cup, certainly probably not in my lifetime. And just to see the atmosphere and buzz around women's sport itself was really awesome too. Had a really great time with our FIFA team up there and talking about how the space is evolving and what's going on, both on the football side and on the Metaverse side. That
sounds super fun. Let's go back to Metaverse. Do you think that in the future, most of our lives would be spent in Metaverse? Let's talk about not maybe our generation, but future generations.
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, I think the idea that there is this digital society and this physical society is a silly one. I can see out there in the audience, despite how entertaining Yana and I, people are looking at their screens now. You're immersed in the Metaverse. And so the idea that these are distinctly separate things, we're streaming live around the world now to an audience, is silly. If we took the digital out of the economy, there would be no economy. If we took the digital out of society, there would be no society as we know it today. And so the Metaverse exists, it's all around us, and the idea of the Metaverse is about, in our minds, is about enabling more ownership on the internet and more creativity for users to make more immersive spaces, and for brands and companies to make more cohesive and more joined up customer experiences.
Great. I know you wanted to show a video.
Yeah.
Video demo of music integration. Should we do that now?
Yeah, let's roll the video. This is a little demo that shows some of the highlights of the technology the team's building that we use internally now, and we'll be making available to developers and consumers soon.
Great.
Hey Aaron, good to see you. What brings you to Amsterdam? Ah, cool, I'm a big fan of innovation. What kind of things does Futureverse build? Well, I'd love to know more about that AI stuff. It all seems a bit scary to me. But I've heard good things about XRP. Now you're talking my language. We need to get you some stroopwafels.
you. Could you tell us what was happening there?
Yeah, so what we're doing there is a bunch of the tools that exist in Futureverse for creating environments, animating characters, bringing those characters to life, and generating music. So all of those tools we're using internally now. Next stage is to put those out as creator tools and developer tools, integrate those with the SDKs. We just actually announced yesterday our partnership to invest in and become a large shareholder in a company called Crucible, which produces SDKs for Unreal and Unity. They have, I think, over 35,000 developer downloads of their SDKs, about 3% of the game developer market. So huge penetration for these products and services to go into the existing game developer community, all connected back to the root network and our protocols for ownership of intelligence and content in the metaverse.
That's so cool. We are getting towards the end of our time. Anything else you want to add that will be relevant for XRP Ledger developers and what they can do on the root network and XRP Ledger?
Yeah, well, first of all, we're really excited to be able to be here today and share what we're doing. We'd love to hear from you what you're doing and what you'd like to be doing. If I could have Marco and Charlotte raise their hands, stand up. We'll be around. They're at the back there. They've got these kind of cool Futureverse t-shirts on. So Marco's our CTO and Charlotte heads up our platform marketing. And so hit us up, come and have a chat. We also have a incubator and accelerator and venture fund that sits on the side of the Futureverse. So if you're looking for support with building your application and you're wanting to connect that to XRP and the XRPL and root network ecosystems, then please come and apply. Applications can be found on the Futureverse website. So that's in partnership with Outlier Ventures. So we'd love to have you apply to those programs and support you in building more content, more utility, more onboarding ramps for users in the open metaverse.
And more developers on XRP Ledger. I need to get a hand on one of those t-shirts. I think we're at the end. Thank you, Aaron. It was absolute pleasure for me, and I hope our audience found it valuable. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.